Well, doing something this week that I don't think I've done in my almost 5 years of priesthood is that I had the 8 and the 4 last week, and got some comments and prayed about it. So the homily I gave last week, I'm giving this week. So if you're at the 8 or the 4 last week, Holy Spirit wants you to hear this again. But the idea is that hopefully everybody in the parish gets to hear the words, and it's going to have an impact on how we as a parish tackle preparing for Lent. And this first understanding is that we have to recognize, what it is that forms us. Everything from what we read, to who our family is, to where we live, to the type of people that we hang out with. That is such a huge impact on who we are. When you have friends, you begin to imitate things that they say, you begin to use the same phrases, and you begin to have their life philosophies often imprinted on you, and hopefully that's a good thing. I look at my life, one of the greatest things that has ever happened to me is, my 8 years in formation between Nebraska and Rome and Mundelein, being influenced by hundreds of men, literally hundreds and hundreds of men from around the world who were at least open to the idea of giving their life to the priesthood, and that sort of just fraternal correction, that formation that happens by living in community in that way. I wouldn't be the same person if I hadn't had those influences on my life. And hopefully friendships bring us up. Hopefully our family create that desire within us to strive for holiness. We all recognize, when you're hanging around bad eggs, that's going to influence your life as well. And for us, we have to recognize that when we have a relationship with something that is a part of us for hours and hours and hours every single day, it's going to have influence over us. And I'm talking about technology, right? And that is such a broad term. It could be cell phones, it can be computer, it can be television, it can even be what we read, like media. So it's a broader scope. But on Sunday morning, if you have an iPhone, like just not that long ago, you get the little alert on your phone that tells you how much time you're spending on your phone every single day. And I remember my first parish, the kids, way too young, had iPhones, and I would see it. I'm like, let me see your iPhone for like the 9:30 mass, because it must be like 9 o'clock or 8:30 or whenever it pops up. And you would see on, these 5th, 6th to 7th grade kids, 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. I'm not kidding. 12 hours a day with the screen either in your face or going on in the background. If you're spending 12 hours a day with something, it is going to drastically influence the way that you look at your world, the way that you live your life. So the first sort of question that we all need to ask is, do we realize the influence that media and technology is having on my life? Do we realize how it is impacting the way that we make choices, the desires that we strive for, and negative impacts that it has on our life, right? There can be a lot of good with technology. There can be a lot of good, right? There's so many amazing resources to learn and to have just endless amounts of content and resources that are very good, right? But we also know the negative impacts that it has on us as wasting time or destroying innocence and charity and peace and joy, and by promoting things that are not good, true, or beautiful. And brothers and sisters, with just a couple weeks going before we start Lent, I'm really asking the whole parish, as a part of whatever you're doing this Lent, and take a step back on media and technology. And each of you are going to have to figure out what that looks like. But as your father, I'm telling you, this is something we're all going to be doing, right? I don't know why that's funny, but it's just what we're doing, right? To understand that I very much take to heart what guys like Bishop Fulton Sheen, hopefully one day Saint Fulton Sheen, but not quite there yet, right? He said you have to have the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. We're supposed to not keep our head in the sand. We're supposed to be aware and to be able to comment on what's going on. We live in this world. We have to be a part of it, but not of it, right? That delicate balance, in the world, but not of the world. But a lot of the news sources that we have right now, I don't care which one you're watching, it does nothing but destroys your peace. And it goes overboard. You need to know some things, but you don't need to know everything. And when you find your heart restless, when you find you're worrying, when you find that it's distracting you from being the saint that God is calling you to be to the people in your life, then we have to put it down. We have to leave it. It's destroying our peace. Especially this year, there is going to be all sorts of craziness, right? These last couple election years, it seems like it's ramping up. I don't know how much more it can ramp up, but there's going to be a lot of division, a lot of toxicity, and we don't need to lower ourselves to go into that. We don't need to be a part of all of the fighting. We're called to be saints, right? So to understand, is this something that is making me a better person by watching this or listening to this? But then just really recognizing and challenging open communication to ask the question, do I know the influence that this is having on my life? But then in that same thought, do I know what my spouse is watching? Do I know what my children are watching? And if I have any semblance of a relationship, do I know what my grandkids are watching? Because brothers and sisters, there are so many damaging things that are hurting the innocence and purity and charity, the truth, and that core value of understanding what it means to be a son or daughter of God when someone is being influenced so much by media and technology, right? I was born in 91. All right, take your moment to be like, oh my gosh, Father's so young. I remember what I did in 1991. Nobody cares, right? When you're a priest, 10 years of life in 1 year of priesthood, right? It's my 5th year of priesthood, so I'm actually like 82 and living life. So, all right, yeah, I'm 32, but I've seen more than you guys have, all right? So get over it. I was born in 91. I didn't have a cell phone. I went out in the woods and played, right? It's sort of the last semblance of childhood of yesteryear, right? My parents couldn't throw an iPhone or an iPad in front of my face. But 99, my parents got a computer. A little gateway thing like this, right? You could play Minesweeper. It wasn't a lot going on, but by the time I was literally in 4th grade, started searching the internets and finding things. And I remember at one point, Dad having a conversation with me and just so you know, right, you can sort of track everything that's going on in the computer, and anything that you can see, we can see. So just don't see anything that you don't want your mother to see or me to see, right? Kids know more than their parents. And it took me one Google search of how do I delete this and that so that nobody knows what I'm doing. I'm glad you find it funny. It was actually incredibly damaging on my development, and we're dealing with something that is now pretty much every single person sees things that destroys their innocence, destroys their charity, and destroys their relationship with themselves and how to love other people. And that's probably the most important thing that priests don't talk about, right? And that's something that I had to do a lot of healing with the Lord and with help, right? We are all injured by what we shouldn't see. In the same way, if you take your kids to a playground, somebody walks up and punches them in the face, you don't get mad at the kid, right? When someone sees something that they're not supposed to, before they're ready to ask that question, this person who I love is now injured and needs healing. It needs to be able to learn and grow on how to both give and receive love differently than maybe you did, the way that you grew up, because that innocence and purity and charity was in its proper order, potentially, right? So for all of us, we need to know and have these conversations and lead with mercy and lead with compassion and lead with healing. And this is, I can't emphasize it enough, right? So for all of us to recognize, if this is something that I'm struggling with, either addiction to negative content that is impacting my life, or just screen time in general, right? We never get over these things by ourselves. You have to bring someone else in to be able to help. You have to bring a parent, an accountability partner, a friend, a priest, a counselor, someone to help you get over these things, right? The devil wants us to keep things private. The devil wants to keep things alone. But if the devil wants you to do something, that's a surefire sign that that's not how you're supposed to do it, right? The Lord wants to bring things into the light. He wants healing to happen as a community. So brothers and sisters, right now, we just have to recognize the way, as the psalm said, that technology and media is hardening our hearts to hearing the voice of the Lord. And as we get ready for this season of Lent, this season of which we detach of the world, we put things of the world behind us, we empty ourselves so that we can grow closer to the Lord and to allow our hearts to change into who we are meant to be as daughters and sons of God. Just as this Mass goes on, to ask the Holy Spirit to show you how these things are impacting you and what steps you need to say no and to abandon that and to allow yourself to be configured to the heart of Christ.